Picture this. It's 1920, and America is about to embark on a decade so wild, so transformative, that we're still feeling its effects today. Welcome to the Roaring Twenties, the birthplace of modern America. Buckle up, because we're about to take a whirlwind tour through one of the most exhilarating periods in U.S. history. Let's kick things off with a bang. Did you know that in 1920, the average life expectancy was just 54 years? Fast forward to today, and we've added nearly 3 decades to that number. Talk about progress. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the changes that rocked America during this tumultuous decade. As World War I faded into memory, America found itself in an unprecedented position of global power. The economy was booming, and for the first time, more Americans lived in cities than on farms. This urban shift set the stage for a cultural revolution that would reshape the nation's identity. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the booze in the speakeasy. Prohibition kicked off the decade, banning the production and sale of alcohol. But did it stop people from drinking? Not a chance. Instead, it gave rise to an underground culture of speakeasies, bootleggers, and organized crime. Al Capone? Anyone? While some were busy breaking the law, others were breaking social norms. Enter the flappers, young women who ditched their corsets, bobbed their hair, and danced the Charleston with abandon. These bold ladies weren't just changing fashion. They were challenging traditional gender roles and paving the way for future generations of women to assert their independence. Speaking of independence, let's not forget that 1920 marked a major milestone for women's rights. The 19th Amendment was ratified, finally giving women the right to vote. It was a hard-fought victory that had been decades in the making, and it fundamentally altered the political landscape of America. Now, hold on to your hats, because we're about to dive into the economic roller coaster of the Roaring Twenties. The stock market was soaring, and suddenly, everyday Americans were trying their hand at investing. It seemed like everyone was getting rich quick. The Dow Jones Industrial Average quadrupled in value between 1920 and 1929. People were so optimistic, they were buying stocks on margin, essentially gambling with money they didn't have. What could possibly go wrong? But before we get to that, let's talk about the incredible technological advancements that were transforming daily life. The 1920s saw the rise of the automobile, with the number of cars on American roads tripling during the decade. Suddenly, people could travel farther and faster than ever before. It wasn't just changing how people got around, it was changing where they lived, worked, and played. And speaking of play, let's not forget about the entertainment revolution. Radio became a household staple, bringing news, music, and entertainment directly into people's homes. For the first time, Americans from coast to coast could share in the same experiences simultaneously. It was the social media of its day, connecting the nation in ways that had never been possible before. But wait, there's more! The 1920s also gave birth to talking pictures. In 1927, The Jazz Singer became the first feature-length film with synchronized dialogue, ushering in the era of the talkies. Hollywood was booming, and America was falling in love with the silver screen. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds great. What's the catch? Well, beneath the glitz and glamour of the Roaring Twenties, there were some serious issues brewing. The wealth gap was widening, with the richest 1% of Americans owning 40% of the nation's wealth by the end of the decade. Sound familiar? Meanwhile, racial tensions were high. The Great Migration saw millions of African Americans moving from the rural South to urban areas in the North and West, seeking better opportunities and escaping Jim Crow laws. This shift led to increased racial conflict and the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, which reached its peak membership in the mid-1920s. And let's not forget about the cultural clash between tradition and modernity. The Scopes monkey trial of 1925 put this conflict on full display, pitting evolutionary theory against creationism in a courtroom drama that captivated the nation. It was old versus new, rural versus urban, science versus faith, a battle that in many ways continues to this day. As the decade roared on, the party seemed like it would never end. But of course, we know that it did, and in spectacular fashion. On October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed, wiping out billions of dollars of wealth in a single day. The Great Depression that followed would cast a long shadow over the exuberance of the Roaring Twenties. But here's the thing. Even as the economic bubble burst, the cultural and social changes of the 1920s had already left an indelible mark on American society. The seeds of modern America had been planted, and they would continue to grow and evolve in the decades to come. So, what's the legacy of the Roaring Twenties? In many ways, we're still living it. The tension between progress and tradition, the power of mass media, the struggle for equality, the boom and bust cycle of the economy. These are all themes that continue to shape our world today. The 1920s showed us the best and worst of what America could be, a land of opportunity and excess, of innovation and inequality. It was a decade that dared to dream big, even if those dreams sometimes came crashing down. And in that sense, maybe we're all still a little bit Great Gatsby at heart, forever reaching for that green light, borne back ceaselessly into the past. So the next time you turn on the radio, watch a movie, or take a road trip, remember, you're experiencing the echoes of the Roaring Twenties. It was more than just a decade. It was the birth of modern America, setting the stage for the country we know today. And who knows, maybe we're on the cusp of another transformative era right now. After all, history has a funny way of repeating itself, just with better special effects.